The first thing Aloysia noticed about Queen Seraphine Deathcut was her silence. Not the kind born of shyness or apathy, but something colder, an oppressive quiet that swallowed the air around her like fog around gravestones. She sat atop the obsidian throne like she had been carved from the same stone, draped in blood-red velvet, her dark eyes unreadable, lips a precise, unmoving line. Power radiated from her in invisible waves, bending the very posture of the courtiers who dared approach her. And yet, when Aloysia entered the grand throne room of Volcrest for the first time, she didn't lower her gaze. She looked directly at the queen. And Seraphine looked back. That was how it began, with a gaze that lasted too long, too sharp. It was only later that Aloysia realized that her name had not been announced aloud. No one had spoken it. Yet the queen murmured, "So this is the Winfred girl," her voice as smooth and ancient as wine poured over marble. Aloysia curtsied too fast, nerves crackling beneath her skin like sparks. "Your Majesty, I do not recall summoning you." "No, Your Majesty. The Duchess of Ellenrose recommended me. She thought that I was in need of a new companion," Seraphine finished, tone dry. How thoughtful of her. And presumptuous. The throne room was silent, watching. Aloysia's fingers trembled against her skirts, but she lifted her chin. "If it displeases Your Majesty, I can return to Ellenrose." For a moment, Seraphine didn't answer. Then a thin, amused smile ghosted over her lips.
"No. Stay."
I find myself curious. That word did something strange to Aloysia's stomach.
Curiosity.
From a woman who had ruled unchallenged for nearly a century, whose portraits never seemed to age. A monarch feared not only for her policies but for her absence of vulnerability. It was curiosity that spared her. It was curiosity that doomed her. Her chambers were close to the queen's, too close. Volcrest Castle was a maze of candlelit corridors and mirrored halls, built more for intimidation than comfort. The staff moved like ghosts, whispering only when necessary. And at night, the castle changed. Windows were shuttered tight despite the mild spring air. Servants vanished. Doors were locked. And the queen was never seen. Until the third night, Aloysia awoke with a start. Something had disturbed the air, an instinct more than a sound. She rose, barefoot, and opened her chamber door. The corridor outside was dark. Unnaturally dark. No torches burned. Yet a flicker of movement caught her eye. A figure in crimson silk gliding soundlessly through the shadows. Aloysia followed. Against every instinct, every warning her mind screamed, she followed. The figure turned a corner, then another, vanishing into a wing of the castle she had been explicitly told never to enter. But Aloysia was not built for obedience. When she turned the final corner, she stopped breathing. There, bathed in moonlight from a single cracked window, stood Seraphine. Not in her royal robes, not in the armor of cold command, but barefoot, pale-skinned, her hair unbound and falling over one shoulder like black water. Blood stained the edge of her mouth. And her eyes, gods, her eyes. They glowed faintly red in the dark. Seraphine didn't startle. She simply tilted her head, as if she had been waiting. "You shouldn't be here, Aloysia." Her voice was lower now, almost a purr. "I heard something. I thought," her throat was dry. "I thought someone might be hurt." They were. Seraphine stepped forward, bare feet silent on the stone. "But not you. Not yet." The distance between them shrank like the dying wick of a candle. Aloysia's heartbeat was an earthquake. She should run. She should scream. But she couldn't move.
She didn't want to.
She began, but Seraphine reached her first, lifting a single finger to Aloysia's lips.
"Cold.
So cold. Say nothing. What you think you saw you did not." Her breath was sweet and metallic. "Go back to your room. If I wished you dead, I would not be speaking to you now." Aloysia didn't obey. Instead, she whispered, "Are you going to hurt me?" Seraphine's hand dropped. Her expression flickered. Not annoyance. Not fury. Something like sorrow. "No," she said finally. "That's the problem." And then she was gone. No footsteps. No rustle of silk. Just absence. The next morning, the queen dined as usual in the grand hall, flanked by advisors. She sipped her tea, spoke with precision, wore her crown, as if nothing had happened, as if Aloysia had dreamed it. But Aloysia had seen the blood, and now she couldn't stop looking at the queen's lips, or wondering how many secrets they could whisper, if she got close enough to hear. The morning after her midnight encounter with the queen, Aloysia could not think. She went through the rituals of courtly life, brushing silks, bowing to foreign lords, pouring the queen's tea, with a precision that bordered on mechanical. And yet, her hands trembled. Her pulse thrummed with questions, images, long looks across candlelit tables. Seraphine was no different. Composed, regal, unreadable. She wore a gown the color of dried rose petals and spoke to her advisors with lethal calm, each word measured like a dagger before it was thrown. But her eyes, those eyes still burned crimson in Aloysia's memory. And every now and then, across the space between them, they met her gaze. Briefly, sharply, like a spark she wasn't supposed to see. Aloysia did not sleep that night. Instead, she wandered the silent corners of the castle, careful not to be caught. She passed the same corridors she had followed Seraphine through, trying to make sense of what she'd seen. Vampires were myth, cautionary tales. Yet the blood on Seraphine's lips had been real. The glowing eyes, the inhuman stillness. But if the queen was truly what Aloysia suspected, how had she hidden it so long? Who else knew? How many others had vanished into those forbidden wings of the castle and never returned? The next morning, as if summoned by her restless thoughts, Seraphine sent for her. "Walk with me," she said, "and let Aloysia not through the throne room or the rose gardens, but out into the cliffs beyond the palace. No guards, no attendants, just the sea, crashing like fury against the rocks below. This is where my mother died," Seraphine said calmly, stopping near the edge. "She threw herself into the sea after my father's head was cut from his body. I was 14. The crown was still warm when they placed it on my head." Aloysia said nothing. She hadn't expected confession. She hadn't expected vulnerability. "Do you believe in curses, Aloysia?" "I don't know," she said truthfully. "Should I?" Oh. Seraphine looked out to the horizon, where storm clouds gathered like secrets. "They said I was cursed, that the line of death cut was unnatural, touched by gods or demons. No one ruled this long without help." "Is it true?" Aloysia asked softly. "That you've ruled a century?"
A beat.
Then Seraphine turned, her face unreadable. "And if it were? Then I would ask what it cost you." Seraphine stared at her. Long, deep. Something flickered there, behind the regal mask, a shadow of pain, or maybe longing. "More than you understand." She stepped closer. Too close. The wind snapped at her hair, sending strands brushing against Aloysia's cheek. "You ask dangerous questions. Then answer them," Aloysia whispered, not moving away. "Let me understand you." Seraphine's hand rose, brushed a loose curl from Aloysia's face with deliberate slowness. Her fingers lingered against her temple, trailing heat and cold in equal measure. "No one has tried to understand me in a very long time. Maybe they were afraid. Maybe they were right to be." Her hand dropped. "Go back to the castle. Stay out of the West Wing. If you value your life. And if I value you." That stopped Seraphine. For just a breath she froze. Her eyes darkened. Her mouth parted. But she said nothing. Just turned, cloak snapping like a wound in the wind, and walked away. That night, Aloysia dreamed of teeth. Not fangs. Teeth like keys, unlocking something deep inside her. Hunger, longing, defiance. She woke with her skin on fire, heart pounding, lips aching from words never spoken. Days passed, and the court began to notice the change. Whispers clung to her skirts. The Winfred girl had caught the queen's attention. Some called her foolish, others ambitious. A few warned her, quietly, of girls who had come before. Girls who had wandered too far into the queen's favor. Girls who were never seen again. Still, Aloysia searched. She asked questions no one dared to answer. She found old portraits hidden in dust-covered archives. Seraphine, looking exactly the same, standing beside kings long dead. In one, her hand rested on a woman's shoulder. A woman with wide eyes and a fearful smile. The back read, Lady Marilyn, 1723. Aloysia ran her finger over the date. More than 80 years ago, that woman had once stood where she now stood. Close to Seraphine. Too close. She never appeared in any later paintings. That night, the queen summoned her again. Not to the throne. Not to the cliffs. To the West Wing. The Forbidden Wing. Her heart beat like a war drum as she stepped past the threshold. Velvet shadows. Whispering torches. And at the end, Seraphine. Waiting. Alone. I warned you, she said quietly. You're not afraid enough. Aloysia stepped closer. I'm not afraid of you. You should be. Why? Because I don't know what I'll do if you keep looking at me like that. Aloysia swallowed hard. Then stop me. And Seraphine did nothing. She didn't move.
Didn't speak.
Just stared at her like she wanted to drink something far deeper than blood. Aloysia reached for her hand. Cold. So cold. But she didn't let go. And neither did the queen. There were no candles in the queen's private wing. Only oil lamps, dim and golden, casting shadows that clung like whispers to the walls. Aloysia followed Seraphine through a narrow corridor she'd never seen before, past tall doors etched with runes and locked with chains that looked ancient. She didn't ask what was behind them. She didn't have to. Every step further into the darkness was a step deeper into Seraphine's world, the one hidden from courtiers and lords, the one cloaked in silence and sealed with blood. The queen didn't speak. She moved like memory, fluid and cold, her crimson gown trailing behind her like spilled wine. Aloysia's breath was shallow, her thoughts thick with questions she knew she couldn't ask yet. They stopped in a small chamber, lit only by a single hearth. A table, 2 chairs, nothing grand. Nothing regal. Sit, Seraphine said, and her voice wasn't commanding. It was almost human. Aloysia sat. Seraphine didn't. She stood with her back half-turned, staring into the fire. There was a time, she said, voice low, when I still believed I could be good. Aloysia swallowed. You're not. Don't. Seraphine cut in gently. Don't lie to make me softer. A long pause. There is blood on my hands that has dried, and blood that has not. The difference no longer matters. Why show me this? Aloysia asked. Why let me in? Seraphine turned, and for the first time, her mask cracked. Not shattered, but cracked, enough for Aloysia to glimpse the woman beneath the crown. Because you don't flinch. Maybe I'm too foolish to. No, Seraphine said, stepping closer. You're too brave. Her fingers touched Aloysia's cheek, and the world narrowed to that single point of contact. Cold skin, warm breath, the silent language of longing that had no proper words. Aloysia leaned in, just slightly. Her heart screamed, her lips parted. Seraphine didn't move away. Their mouths were inches apart. Her eyes flickered gold-red in the firelight, and Aloysia knew, with terrifying clarity, that this moment would either ruin her or set her free. Don't, Seraphine whispered. Don't kiss me. Why not? Because I'm starving. The words struck like lightning. Aloysia's breath caught. For blood. For you. That admission hung between them like a blade. Seraphine stepped back sharply. Like distance could protect them both. You need to go. No, Aloysia, you want me. You said it.
Yes.
And if I don't stop this now, I'll destroy you. What if I'm not afraid of being destroyed? Then you're more dangerous than I am. The door creaked behind them. Someone had entered the wing. Seraphine went still, then moved faster than Aloysia could track. 1 second she was beside her. The next she was gone, a flicker of shadow. Voices echoed down the hall.
Guards.
But something was wrong. The tone wasn't routine. It was panic. "Your Majesty," one of them called. "A body. In the East Gardens." Seraphine appeared again, fully composed. "The Queen once more. Love what you've seen so far, and want to help me keep creating these awesome stories on this channel? Then subscribe and hit the bell. Your subscription supports the channel and makes sure you get more exciting stories." "Stay here," she ordered, and vanished into the corridor. Aloysia did not obey. Minutes later, she was outside, heart pounding against her ribs as she slipped past distracted sentries. The East Gardens were bathed in moonlight, and in the center of the rose maze lay a nobleman's corpse, Sir Halric, a known opponent of the Queen's latest treaty. His throat was torn open. Blood soaked the grass. "It's her," someone whispered behind Aloysia. "Another one. Just like before. She'll blame rebels, like always. Maybe she's not the one killing them, but they're all close to her." The whispers clawed at her skin. Seraphine stood over the body, silent, still. Her eyes were calm. Too calm. And when she looked up, her gaze locked with Aloysia's. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Seraphine said coldly, "Take her back to her chambers."
Now.
"I'm not the one who, now." The guards obeyed, but not harshly, not roughly, as if they, too, feared something deeper than protocol. Aloysia's mind burned with questions. Was this Seraphine's doing? A rival silenced? A hunger slipped loose? Or something worse, someone else using the Queen's secret against her? She spent the night pacing, waiting for answers that wouldn't come. At dawn, a message arrived. No signature. Just one line. "Meet me by the cliffs." Alone. She went. Of course she did. Seraphine stood with her back to the sea again, wind pulling at her hair. This time, when she spoke, there was no regal polish. Only exhaustion. "I didn't kill him. But you've killed others." A pause. "Yes." "Then, why does this one matter?" Seraphine turned, eyes rimmed red, not with hunger, but something closer to grief. "Because whoever did this wants you to believe it was me. And that means they know." "Know what?" "That you matter to me." The confession hit her like fire. "Then why push me away?" "Because I won't survive loving you." "Then don't love me," Aloysia whispered. "Want me.
Hate me.
Bite me.
But don't lie to me."
Seraphine's breath caught. Her hands trembled. But she didn't move. Didn't close the space between them. "You should leave, Valcrest. You're still trying to protect me?" "No," Seraphine said. "I'm trying to protect the last part of myself that isn't a monster." The wind howled, and Aloysia, furious and aching, whispered, "Then you're already too late." There was something different in the air after the murder. Thicker, sharper, like the taste of metal before a storm. The castle whispered more than it breathed. Eyes lingered longer. Doors stayed shut. Servants moved like shadows, and the nobles began to smile with their teeth too much, too often. Aloysia felt it in her bones. Something had shifted. And at the center of it, as always, was Seraphine. Aloysia hadn't seen her since their conversation by the cliffs. Days passed. No summons. No glances. Not even a note. It was as if the Queen had vanished into stone, letting her crown speak in her absence. And yet, Aloysia couldn't stop thinking of her. Of the look in her eyes when she said "you matter." Of the ache in her voice when she whispered she wouldn't survive loving her. Of the way their mouths had nearly almost touched.
She needed to understand.
Not just Seraphine's hunger. Not just her silence. But the world behind the throne, the one the Queen tried so hard to keep hidden. So she did what no lady-in-waiting was ever supposed to do. She began to investigate the Queen's enemies. There were too many to count. Old nobles whose lands had been stripped. Foreign dignitaries who resented her power. Even her own council, too obedient, too polished. Some of them waited for her to fall. In the library's deepest archives, hidden behind a false panel of stone, Aloysia found something that made her blood run cold. A book with no title, bound in dark leather, sealed with wax. Inside, pages filled with names, centuries of names, nobles, knights, servants, and beside them, A single word repeated like a curse. Consumed. Every decade, another handful, all with connections to the crown. Some she recognized. Many she didn't. But one name was circled in red ink, and beside it, scrawled in sharp, angry handwriting. Winford. Her own family. Her great-aunt, Lyra Winford, listed as missing after a royal banquet in 1789. No record since. No grave. No mention. Aloysia's hands shook. She closed the book, heart pounding, and turned, to find someone watching her. Lady Bexley, a minor noble with a too-perfect smile. Curious reading, she said softly. Most girls prefer poetry. Aloysia forced a laugh. I was following a reference. For the Queen. Of course. But Bexley's eyes glinted with something darker. Just be careful, dear. Valcrest is very good at swallowing girls like you. That night, she couldn't sleep. She wandered the halls again, hoping for a glimpse, a sound, anything from Seraphine. But the west wing was silent. The moon was sharp as a blade through the windows. She stood outside the Queen's private chamber for a full minute before she dared knock. No answer. Just her reflection in the black wood. You left me alone, she whispered. After everything. The door opened without a sound. Seraphine stood there, barefoot, hair loose, eyes shadowed with exhaustion. You should go back to your chambers. Why won't you look at me? Because I'm losing control. Aloysia stepped forward, pulse screaming. Then lose it. You don't understand what that means. Then show me. Seraphine grabbed her. Not harshly, not violently, but with urgency. Her hands cupped Aloysia's face, her breath trembling. You want me to kiss you, but you don't know what I am when I want. Yes, I do. No, you don't, Seraphine whispered. When I want, I crave. When I crave, I consume. Then take what you want. You are not a feast, Seraphine growled. Your prayer, I don't dare say aloud. Her forehead pressed to Aloysia's. Please, don't ask me to do this. I already have. The kiss didn't happen. Not yet. But it could have. And that edge, that unbearable ache, was worse than any touch. Aloysia's fingers brushed Seraphine's wrist, where her pulse should have been. Nothing. And yet she burned. Someone wants to destroy you, she murmured. I found a book. My family's name was in it. Seraphine pulled back slowly. You've been in the Forbidden Archives? Yes. Then they'll come for you next. Let them. Don't be so reckless. Don't be so cold. I'm not cold, Seraphine said quietly. I'm terrified. And then she did something Aloysia had never seen before. She staggered. The Queen, immortal, unshakable, untouchable, swayed on her feet like something inside her had broken loose. Aloysia caught her. You haven't fed, she realized. Not since. Not since I saw you in that corridor. Why? Because every time I feed, I remember what I could do to you. And the thought of tasting anyone else disgusts me now. Aloysia swallowed hard. Then taste me. No, why? Because I wouldn't stop. Silence stretched between them, thick as smoke. Seraphine sat, finally, her strength fading. And for the first time, Aloysia knelt before her. Not as subject to queen, but woman to woman. If they're coming for me, she said, then I want you to teach me how to fight. How to survive. What I am can't be taught. No, Aloysia said. But love can be. That word. That curse. Seraphine flinched like she'd been struck. Say it again, and I might lose what's left of my soul. Aloysia leaned in. Maybe I want to see what's underneath. A knock shattered the moment. Not gentle. Urgent. Seraphine rose like a storm. What is it? A guard's voice from the other side. Lady Bexley requests your presence. She claims to have news about the Winford girl. Aloysia's blood froze. Seraphine's eyes went black. Stay here, she said, and was gone before Aloysia could answer. But Aloysia didn't wait. She followed. Quiet.
Quick.
Through halls and shadows, down into the council chamber, where Lady Bexley stood with a scroll in her hand and poison in her smile. "Your Majesty," she said sweetly, "you may want to read this carefully. It concerns your little companion and her unfortunate lineage." Aloysia saw the queen hesitate, just a flicker, but it was enough. Bexley saw it too, and she smiled wider. The scroll Lady Bexley handed to Seraphine was sealed in black wax, stamped with the symbol of House Calvaris, an extinct noble line wiped out 2 centuries ago for treason against the crown. And yet here it was, trembling between the queen's fingers like a ghost from another age. Aloysia watched from the shadows as Seraphine broke the seal. Her face changed as her eyes swept the page. No expression, but the stillness of it was worse than any fury. "Where did you get this?" she asked, voice like a blade dulled from use. "A loyal informant," Bexley said with a sickly smile. "It seems Lady Aloysia Winford is not as innocent as she pretends. Her bloodline is unique." "Explain." "House Winford," Bexley said, stepping closer, "once served as guardians to House Calvaris. Not protectors, not allies, but something older. Their daughters were bred with a very specific purpose, to be vessels." Seraphine's silence was volcanic. "Vessels for what?" she finally asked. "For destruction. For endings. For monsters like you." "Enough," Seraphine snapped. "I've tolerated your venom for too long." But Bexley only smiled. "You think you love her. You think she's yours. But she's just a weapon. And the moment her blood touches your lips, the curse will complete itself. You'll burn, Your Majesty. You'll burn like every death cut before you." The guards looked uneasy. Aloysia, heart racing, stepped into the light. "Is that true?" she asked Seraphine. "Answer me." Seraphine didn't move. Her hands were clenched around the scroll, veins dark beneath her skin. "I don't know," she said finally. "I've spent a century running from myths and half-truths. Your name in that book, your great-aunt, yes, I remember her. She came to court. She was warm, reckless, beautiful. She kissed me once." Aloysia's chest tightened. "What happened to her?" "She asked me to bite her. I refused. 2 days later, she was found dead. And you don't know why?" "I know it wasn't me." A pause. "But I know it was because of me." Bexley's voice curled around them like smoke. "You're bound, Your Majesty. You always were. And now she's here to finish the spell. You've already started to weaken." "Get out," Seraphine said. "Now." "This is bigger than you think. Get out." The windows shook. The flames in the sconces flared violently. Bexley's smile faltered. She bowed, mockingly, and left. The door slammed shut behind her. Silence. Aloysia stood there, trying to breathe through the pounding in her ears. "Is it true?" she asked again. "Am I cursed?" "No," Seraphine said, slowly, painfully. "You're not cursed. You're chosen." "What does that even mean?" "I don't know. I only know that the moment I tasted your name, I couldn't forget it." She stepped forward, like gravity pulled her. "You've haunted me since the night you walked into my court, and every night since." Aloysia trembled, not from fear, but from everything else. "Then stop running. If I drink from you, then you drink. You could die. And if I don't let you, you will." Seraphine's jaw clenched. Her hands shook. Her control was fraying, and Aloysia could see it in every line of her face. "You smell like roses in winter," the queen whispered. "Like warmth in a tomb. You are the only thing that makes me want to be human again." "Then let me save you. I'm afraid I'll love you too much to stop." "Then don't stop." It happened all at once. Seraphine surged forward. Their mouths collided. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't sweet. It was hunger, heat, centuries of loneliness unraveling in a single breath. Aloysia gasped into her lips, clutching at the queen's shoulders as Seraphine kissed her like the world was ending, because maybe, in some way, it was. Seraphine pulled back just slightly, her mouth trembling against Aloysia's jaw. "Last chance," she whispered. "Tell me to stop." Aloysia tilted her head, baring her throat. I won't. The bite was agony. And ecstasy. Pain laced with pleasure, cold lips pressed to burning skin. Aloysia cried out, not in fear, but release, as Seraphine drank from her like she was something sacred. Time stopped. The castle vanished.
There was only this.
When it was over, Seraphine pulled away with blood on her lips and horror in her eyes. Aloysia? Aloysia's knees buckled. She collapsed against the queen, breathless, dazed. Still here, she murmured. Still yours. But Seraphine didn't respond. Her hands clutched her chest. Her eyes went wide. And then she screamed.
Fire.
Inside her, radiating outward. She collapsed, convulsing, and Aloysia screamed her name. Guards came running. The castle shook. And somewhere, deep in the forbidden archives, a seal snapped open, one that hadn't moved in 300 years. The scream that tore from Seraphine's throat was unlike anything Aloysia had ever heard. Not pain, not rage, but a sound so ancient and hollow it felt like the castle itself wept beneath it. The queen collapsed into Aloysia's arms, her body rigid, her eyes black as night with flecks of gold flashing beneath the surface like stars drowning in ink. Aloysia clung to her, panicked, whispering her name over and over, but Seraphine didn't respond. Her breath came in sharp, burning bursts, each one ragged with something neither human nor immortal. Guards flooded the corridor, weapons drawn, eyes wide with fear and confusion. What happened to her? One of them barked. What did you do? Aloysia held Seraphine tighter, shielding her body with her own. She fed on me. She needed it. She was dying. You let her feed? The question was laced with horror. No one survives that. I did, Aloysia snapped. And I'd do it again. But Seraphine's skin was cold. Her lips bloodied. Her hands clenched and unclenched like claws struggling to hold something in. We need to get her to the sanctum, the captain muttered.
Now.
Aloysia tried to follow, but the guards blocked her. You've done enough, one of them hissed. Stay back. I'm not leaving her. You don't have a choice. Hands grabbed her arms. She fought, kicked, screamed, but they dragged her away as Seraphine's body was carried toward the hidden sanctum beneath the castle, the place no one ever entered unless death was near. They locked Aloysia in her chambers, bolted the door. She didn't sleep,
Couldn't eat.
all she could do was pace the walls, feeling the shift in the air like the slow inhalation of a beast stirring in its sleep. On the third night, she heard it. A voice. Not hers. Not Seraphine's. Something older. Blood has opened what time could not. The vessel breathes. The seal breaks. Aloysia gasped and pressed her hands to her ears, but the voice was inside her, coiling like smoke around her mind. Visions followed, flashes of a throne not made of stone, but of bone, of fire raining from the skies, of Seraphine on her knees, eyes white, mouth open in a scream with no end. She woke on the floor, drenched in sweat, nails clawed into her own palms. And then Lady Bexley, entering her chamber uninvited, flanked by two cloaked men with empty eyes. She's awake, Bexley said calmly. You can feel her, can't you? Get out. Aloysia spat, her voice hoarse. You tried to break her. I didn't have to, Bexley said, stepping closer. You did it for me. You gave her your blood, and now the thing beneath Volcrest is awake. The hunger that sleeps in her bones isn't just vampirism. It's older than that. She's the last of the bound queens, and you're the key to her unbinding. Aloysia's knees trembled. You knew this. I orchestrated this. A pause. We needed someone innocent. Someone with Winford blood. Someone she would love enough to lower her guard. So I was bait. You were destiny. Aloysia lunged, but the cloaked men grabbed her. One of them pressed something sharp against her neck, cold as ice, burning as salt. The creature beneath the castle feeds on love corrupted. And now, thanks to you, it has tasted it. She's not a creature, Aloysia hissed. She's more human than any of you. Not for much longer. They left her broken and bleeding on the stone floor. But Aloysia didn't cry. She rose.
Slowly, carefully,
And planned. That night, she escaped through a servant's passage she'd mapped weeks before. She moved like shadow, like wrath with a heartbeat, toward the sanctum. The door was guarded by 2 knights, but her fury made her clever. She lured them away with sound and silence, slipped inside like a whisper. And found her, Seraphine, chained by golden links glowing faintly red. Her body limp, eyes closed, veins black beneath skin that looked like porcelain cracked by fire. "No," Aloysia whispered, dropping to her knees. "Please no." Seraphine stirred. "Aloysia," her voice was barely a thread. "They told me you were gone." "They lied." She touched her cheek. Seraphine leaned into the touch like a dying flower toward sun. "I'm losing myself. There's something inside me. Something that was sealed long ago. I can feel it crawling up my spine." "Then let me anchor you. Let me be what holds you to yourself. You don't understand. It's not just bloodlust. It's a god. Or a curse pretending to be one. It wants to wear me. Then we fight it together." Seraphine's eyes opened.
red, bright.
Glowing. "If I break these chains, I don't know who I'll be." "Break them," Aloysia said. "I'll still be here." A silence. A breath. Then, cracks spread through the gold. Seraphine rose, slowly, her power unraveling like storm winds around her. The chains fell away. The ground shuddered. And in the dark below the sanctum, something roared.
Alive.
Hungry. Watching. But Seraphine only looked at Aloysia. "Whatever happens next," she said, voice shaking, "don't stop loving me." "Never," Aloysia whispered. And then Seraphine kissed her. Not hungry, not desperate, but with the aching tenderness of someone who had never been kissed for love. And far beneath them, the thing that had waited for centuries opened its eyes. The kiss had ended, but the heat of it still trembled through Aloysia's bones. Seraphine stood before her, unchained, unleashed, unmasked, and yet not wholly herself. Her eyes no longer held just hunger or sorrow, but something else entirely, a force deeper than desire, older than memory, vast and unknowable. It stared through her, watching, calculating. The thing beneath Volcrest had awakened, and it was inside Seraphine now. Not possessing her like a ghost, not wearing her like a mask. It was her, or it was becoming her. "Seraphine," Aloysia whispered, voice cracking, "you're still in there. I know you are." For a moment, the queen's mouth parted as if to respond, but the light behind her eyes flickered. Shadows rippled over her skin like smoke beneath porcelain. "Aloysia." Her voice had too many layers. Her name stretched and echoed with a resonance that wasn't human. "You should have run." "I'm not going to," she said, stepping closer. "You asked me not to stop loving you. I won't. You don't understand what's coming. Then help me understand. Fight it." "It isn't something I can fight. It was bound in my blood long before I was born. My ancestors made a pact to protect this kingdom, but the price was steep. Immortality, power, and the seed of something that could never be caged forever." Her hands trembled as she reached up to touch her own face, as if unsure if it was still hers. "They called it Dravanya, a hunger given form. It sleeps in bloodlines, in queens, in me. Then we kill it," Aloysia said, breathless. "If it tries to take you, we kill it." Seraphine gave a soft, bitter laugh. "You can't kill what doesn't live. It is not a thing. It is need. It is the moment when love becomes obsession, when devotion becomes ruin. It wants your love because I want your love. Then I'll give it," Aloysia said. "But not to it.
To you."
Seraphine collapsed to her knees. Her hands braced against the ground as the tremors overtook her, her spine arching, jaw clenched, veins pulsing black beneath pale skin. Aloysia dropped beside her, catching her face in both hands. "Look at me," she begged. "Look at me and remember who you are." Seraphine looked, and for a moment, her eyes were hers again, rich and dark and trembling. "I'm afraid," she whispered. I can feel it trying to tear me apart. Then let me hold you together. But before she could speak again, the ground shuddered. Far above, in the great hall, screams erupted. Panic, metal on stone, glass shattering. The court was breaking. War had come to Volcrest. Aloysia helped Seraphine to her feet, and they climbed from the sanctum together, step by painful step, until the night above swallowed them whole. The castle was in chaos. Nobles fled like insects. Guards fought in the corridors. Some were loyal. Others had already sworn themselves to Bexley and her secret order. The scent of blood was thick in the air. It called to Seraphine. Aloysia could feel her flinch with every heartbeat nearby, every wound opened, every scream echoing through the marble halls. You need to feed, Aloysia said. Take what you need. Just don't lose yourself. If I start, I might not stop. Then take from me again. No, Seraphine growled. Not again. Your blood is tied to the curse. Every taste brings it closer to full possession. Then we end this. Tonight. They reached the throne room. The doors were open, the obsidian floor slick with something red. Lady Bexley stood at the center, robed in crimson and gold, surrounded by hooded acolytes whose mouths moved in silent chants. You brought her here, Bexley said, smiling like a blade. How convenient. Let us finish the ritual with a kiss of final devotion. You'll die for this, Seraphine snarled. You think you've bound the curse to me, but you've only awakened it. It won't obey you. It doesn't have to, Bexley said. It only needs to destroy you. And then it will rest. The death-cut line will finally end. You don't understand it, Aloysia said. You think it's some weapon you can control. But it's not. No, Seraphine said quietly. It's love, twisted into hunger. It is everything I feel for you, magnified and turned monstrous. Bexley raised her hands. The air warped, light bent, and Seraphine dropped to her knees again, clutching her chest as if something inside her wanted out. You have to kill me, she gasped. Aloysia, please, before it's too late. No, Aloysia stepped forward, heart-shattering. I won't kill the woman I love. Then it'll take me. It'll wear my skin.
It'll hurt you.
It'll hurt everyone. I don't believe that. Aloysia reached into her bodice and pulled out the blade she'd taken from a fallen guard. She placed it in Seraphine's hand. If you lose control, you do it. But I won't raise a hand against you unless I have to. Seraphine stared at the dagger. You'd trust me with this? I'd trust you with everything I have. The curse surged. A column of dark energy ripped through the floor as if the castle bled shadows. Bexley screamed triumphantly, her arms raised. But the chant cracked. Acolytes faltered. Because Seraphine stood. Not as a puppet, not as a monster, but as a queen. This ends with me, she said, voice thunderous. No more death. No more chains. She turned to Aloysia. If I don't survive this, then I'll follow you, Aloysia whispered. Wherever you go. Don't, Seraphine said, voice cracking.
Live.
Even if I can't. The curse screamed through her. Her body twisted, her eyes went black, her mouth opened in a cry of agony. But she held the blade. And she didn't strike. Because Aloysia was there. Arms around her. Lips against her forehead. I love you, Aloysia whispered. And if that's what it wants, it can't have it. Because my love isn't a weapon. It's yours. For a single second, everything stopped.
The air.
The chanting. The curse. And then the dark energy shattered like glass, exploding outward, flinging the acolytes across the room. Bexley was hurled against the wall with a sickening crack. The floor split beneath the throne. And from within the wound in the castle, something screamed as it was dragged back down, banished, exiled, rejected by the very love it had tried to devour. Seraphine collapsed. Aloysia caught her. Her eyes fluttered open, human.
Warm. Free.
But she was barely breathing. You saved me, she whispered. You loved me enough. I always will, Aloysia said, tears burning her face. Stay.
Please stay.
I'll try, Seraphine said, voice fading. For you, I'll try. And in the silence that followed, Volcrest began to breathe again. Seraphine did not die that night, but she came close. The days that followed passed like a dream Aloysia could not wake from. Silent corridors, scorched marble, whispers that crawled through the stone like veins. The castle had survived, yes, but it was no longer whole. Just as Seraphine was no longer whole. She lay unconscious for 3 days and nights in a hidden chamber known only to the crown's most trusted healers. They said her body was stable, that the creature had been purged. But Aloysia could feel it even before stepping through the guarded doors. Something still lingered in the air around her. Something hungry. Something watching. She stayed by Seraphine's bedside, refusing to eat, to sleep, to leave. Her fingers curled around the queen's hand, pale and motionless, and she whispered stories into the silence. Of the gardens in Ellenrose. Of the first time she saw her. Of the moment her heart had stopped. Not from fear, but from wonder. Seraphine didn't stir, but her fingers twitched.
Once.
Then again. On the 4th night, when Aloysia had just begun to drift into exhausted half-sleep, she felt the pressure return to her palm. She sat bolt upright. Seraphine. A soft breath. A movement. Eyes slowly opening. Familiar, dark, human. You stayed, Seraphine rasped. Of course I stayed. Aloysia whispered, tears rising instantly. I thought I lost you. You almost did. She tried to sit up, groaned, collapsed back against the pillows. Everything hurts. You're alive. That's all that matters. Is it? Seraphine asked, her voice raw and quiet. Do they know that you survived?
No.
That you're the reason I did? Aloysia paused, then nodded. Some do. Enough to be afraid. Seraphine exhaled. Then they'll try to separate us. They already have. The court had gone silent. The throne room locked. The council retreated into private chambers, whispering strategy and risk. Aloysia had not been summoned. Not once. Bexley's body was burned. Her acolytes fled or executed. But something darker had taken her place. Suspicion. Paranoia. Fear. You should go, Seraphine whispered. Leave Volcrest while you can. Say that again, Aloysia said, rising to her feet, and I will shake you until your crown falls off. Seraphine gave a faint, painful smile. I love you. Then don't ask me to leave. You'll be a target. They won't understand what you are to me. They don't need to. They'll call you manipulative. Say you bewitched me. That your blood was poison. That your lips were spellcraft. Then let them speak, Aloysia said. Because the only truth that matters is this. I would burn for you, Seraphine. And I would do it smiling. The queen's eyes closed again. Not unconscious. Just overwhelmed. Your love is terrifying, she murmured. So is yours. A week passed before Seraphine left her bed. Another before she returned to the throne. Aloysia stood at her side, not behind her, not across the hall. At her side. The court was packed with faces too still, too cold. She felt every gaze like a dagger pressed to her skin. Seraphine's voice when she spoke was strong again, but there was something different beneath it now. Vulnerability she no longer tried to hide. You all know what happened here. You saw what was unleashed. And you know who brought me back. A ripple through the chamber. Seraphine rose from the throne, cloak trailing behind her like smoke. Lady Aloysia Winford is not a threat. She is not an enchantress. She is not a spy. She is the reason Volcrest still stands. And if the magic inside her awakens again, one noble called. What if the curse returns? Then I'll meet it as I did before, Seraphine said. But I will not exile the woman I love to soothe your fear. That word, love, sent a chill through the hall. This is not a court for cowards, she continued. I will not rule by shame or suspicion. Those who cannot accept my choice are free to leave. But if you stay, you will kneel not only to your queen, but to the truth she stands beside. Silence. Then one by one some nobles bowed. Others walked out. The kingdom split itself like stone cracking under frost. And at the center stood Seraphine and Aloysia, united, but not safe. That night, as they walked alone through the silent halls of Volcrest, Seraphine laced her fingers with Aloysia's. "You should have let me die," she said softly.
Why?
"Because the war is not over. The beast may be gone, but the fear it left behind is spreading. There are factions now, rebellions whispering in the dark. Then we fight them together." "You speak as if you're queen." "No," Aloysia said. "I speak as the woman who loves one." Seraphine pulled her into a narrow alcove, pressed her against the cold stone wall, lips ghosting over hers. "You would follow me into ruin, wouldn't you?" "Gladly." "You would die for me?" "Yes." "Would you kill for me?" Aloysia didn't flinch. "If I had to." "And would you still love me if I asked you to become something else?" "What do you mean?" "They won't stop. They won't rest. You're mortal, fragile. And she trailed off. You want to turn me. I want to keep you." Aloysia didn't speak for a long time. Then, "Not yet. But one day." Seraphine nodded slowly. "One day." And she kissed her, longer, deeper, more desperate than ever before. As if this was the last night they would ever get to be soft. Because in the shadows behind the chapel, unseen by either of them, a messenger watched. Then slipped away into the night, carrying word to a new power rising beyond Volcrest's borders. A power that knew Seraphine had survived, and wanted her broken. Winter came fast to Volcrest, as if the earth itself had grown cold in the wake of blood and broken oaths. The skies were never clear, the castle halls never warm. And Seraphine was colder than ever. Not in heart but in body. Her skin, once only cool, now felt like ice. She didn't say it aloud, but Aloysia knew. Something had changed after the unbinding. The curse had been cast out, yes, but not without leaving something behind. An emptiness. A hunger that didn't claw at her throat anymore, but at her soul. Yet despite it, Seraphine held her kingdom, ruled fiercely, loved fiercely, and every night, in the privacy of her chambers, loved Aloysia like she was afraid she'd vanish with the dawn. They were fire and frost, mouth to mouth, breath to breath, their need for each other blooming into something more than lust, something desperate and sacred. But even love couldn't stop what was coming. Scouts brought word of movement in the northern borders, villages left in silence, blood drawn in patterns too precise to be human. A symbol scrawled into stone with ash, a crown split in two. At first, Seraphine believed it to be rebels. But Aloysia knew better. The dreams had returned. The voice of the curse, soft and patient, now speaking not to Seraphine, but to her. "You are what woke me. You are the mouth through which I was tasted. And so I will return through you." She didn't tell Seraphine at first. How could she? The queen already looked at her like she was the only thing holding her tethered to this world. But the truth wouldn't stay hidden for long. On the first full moon of the new year, the enemy revealed himself. A man, no, not a man, arrived at the gates of Volcrest, dressed in black armor etched with bone. His name was Arden, once prince of the Calvaris line. Long thought dead. Now something else entirely. He walked into the throne room unannounced, guards trembling, blades drawn. Seraphine rose to meet him. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "Neither should you," he replied. "You broke the seal. You released the god sleeping beneath your bloodline. Now it calls to me." Aloysia stepped forward, but Seraphine blocked her with a single glance. "What do you want?" "You," Arden said, voice like poison silk. "And her." His eyes met Aloysia's. "You're the vessel. You carry the taste, the scent. I want what was denied me. I want the throne, and the blood that woke it." "You'll have neither," Seraphine said. Arden smiled. "Then I'll take them." That night, war came. Not with armies, but with shadows. Creatures crawled from the forest, made of smoke and bone. their mouths open in eternal screams. Magic crackled through the castle walls, and Seraphine, radiant in black and silver, led her guard to the gates. Aloysia stood beside her, no longer dressed in silks, but in armor gifted by the queen herself. She had trained for this, long nights with Seraphine's silent assassins, bruised hands and burning lungs, learning to wield a blade not for honor, but for love. "You should be below," Seraphine said. "Safe." "I am safest beside you," Aloysia answered. "Or not at all." Seraphine kissed her like it might be the last time. Then they went to war. The night was a blur of steel and screaming. Aloysia fought like a shadow, striking quick and vanishing, every blow for Seraphine. The queen, in turn, moved like wrath itself, graceful, brutal, eternal. But Arden was stronger than they feared, and he did not come to win. He came to break. At the height of battle, he appeared on the inner wall, dragging one of Seraphine's most loyal guards by the throat. "Your blood isn't enough," he roared. "I want hers." He pointed to Aloysia. "Give her to me, and I'll spare what's left." "You'll die screaming," Seraphine spat. "You already did," Arden whispered, and threw the guard from the wall. Aloysia ran toward him, blade ready. Arden caught her easily, twisted her wrist until the sword dropped. "So soft," he said. "So alive. No wonder she broke for you." "She didn't break," Aloysia hissed. "She chose." Arden leaned close. "Then she chose her end." But before he could strike, Seraphine was there.
She didn't speak.
She didn't shout. She simply moved.
Fast. Precise.
And for the first time, Arden faltered. The two clashed like night against night, their powers exploding in the air like lightning striking bone. Aloysia could only watch, bruised, bloodied, terrified. Then Seraphine screamed. Arden struck deep, his blade sliding through her ribs, eyes wild with triumph. "Die with her name on your lips," he whispered. "Say it." "Aloysia," Seraphine gasped. Then she dropped. The battlefield fell silent. Aloysia screamed. She ran to Seraphine's body, collapsing beside her, blood soaking her hands. "Don't you dare," she cried.
"Don't you leave me."
Seraphine's eyes fluttered open. "I'm not gone. We need to get you inside." "No," she said, weaker now. "Finish it." "What?" "You know what must be done." Aloysia shook her head.
No.
"No, I won't." "It wants your blood," Seraphine whispered. "Give it something else. Give it my crown." "What does that mean?" "Take it off me," Seraphine said. "Place it on your head." "Seraphine, do it. Before it rises again." Shaking, sobbing, Aloysia reached up. Her fingers touched the crown, the weight of generations, of sacrifice, of power. She lifted it, and as she did, Seraphine's body arched with sudden light, blinding and golden, the last breath of her magic pouring into the metal. Aloysia placed it on her head. The battlefield shook. The shadows screamed. And Arden burned. Light exploded from Aloysia's chest, wild and divine. Every mark left by the curse was turned to ash. The creatures fell. The darkness fled. Arden howled as his body was consumed by the fire of Seraphine's last act of love. And when it was over, when the light faded and the silence returned, Aloysia was on her knees, the crown still glowing faintly atop her head. Seraphine was gone, but the bond between them was not.
Not yet.
The crown sat heavy on Aloysia's head, but not with weight, with memory. It pulsed faintly, as if alive, as if echoing the heartbeat of a woman now gone. All around her, the battlefield was still. The ash of Arden's body had long since vanished into the wind. The creatures he'd summoned were nothing more than black stains across Volcrest soil. And the people, the soldiers, the nobles, the servants, looked to Aloysia now not with suspicion or fear, but with reverence. She had ended the curse. She had saved the queen. And yet she had lost her. Seraphine was nowhere. Her body had not remained. No grave could be dug. No tomb could be built. She had dissolved into light, into something higher, something beyond, the final burst of love-made magic that saved a kingdom and left Aloysia empty. They called her queen now. The council tried to crown her formally. She refused. Not yet. Not while the woman she loved might still be waiting somewhere, just beyond reach. She walked the halls of Volcrest like a ghost wearing someone else's name. She dressed in Seraphine's colors, touched her things, slept in her bed, but none of it felt like hers. She was not born to rule. She was born to love. And what was left when love was pulled from your arms by divine fire? Dreams. Always dreams. Every night, she saw her. In the corridors of memory. In the gardens of dusk.
On the cliffs by the sea.
Seraphine never spoke in them. Only watched. Always just out of reach. But her eyes were never cruel. They were full of longing. And pain. Until one night, Aloysia awoke with a single word in her throat. Come.
She didn't question it.
She dressed in black. Left the crown on her pillow. Walked barefoot through the cold marble halls.
Down. Down.
To the sanctum beneath the castle. No guard stood watch. No torches lit the way. But the walls hummed as she passed, as if recognizing her blood. She stepped into the chamber where Seraphine had once been chained, and now stood a mirror, tall as the ceiling, its surface like frozen smoke. Aloysia approached. Her reflection shimmered.
Changed.
And there, Seraphine. Not broken. Not monstrous. But whole. Dressed in white. Eyes filled with tears that never fell. Are you real? Aloysia whispered. The reflection nodded. Then come back to me. The mirror pulsed. Then cracked. And Seraphine's voice, soft as wind through leaves, filled the room. Only if you ask me not as your queen, but as the woman you love. Seraphine Deathcut, Aloysia whispered, falling to her knees. I love you. Not for your crown. Not for your power. But for your soul. For every cruel and soft thing inside you. For the way you look at me like I'm not a danger, but a miracle. Come back to me. The mirror shattered. Light burst from the frame. And when it cleared, Seraphine stood there. Not pale and inhuman. Not bloodthirsty. Just herself. Fragile.
Real.
Beautiful. Aloysia didn't breathe. Didn't blink.
She ran.
Their bodies collided in a tangle of arms, lips, sobs. Seraphine buried her face in Aloysia's neck, whispering, I tried to stay away. I thought I was protecting you. But I couldn't. Your voice kept pulling me back. I would have torn the veil between life and death apart to find you, Aloysia whispered. You did, Seraphine said, laughing through tears. You really did. They stayed like that for hours. Or minutes. Or eternity. When they finally parted, Seraphine looked at her, serious now. I'm not what I was. The curse burned out of me. My power is different. But my heart has never changed. Then come home, Aloysia said. Let them see you live. Let them know you chose love over legacy. And if they don't accept me, they will, Aloysia said, standing. Because they already accept me. And I will not be queen unless you stand beside me. And Seraphine, once queen, once monster, once flame, nodded. Hand in hand, they climbed from the sanctum as the first light of dawn touched the castle's towers. The people wept when they saw them. Not out of fear, not out of awe, but relief.
Joy. Love.
2 women. 2 crowns. 2 hearts that had bled for a kingdom and now stood ready to build it anew. That night, there was no coronation. There was a celebration. Not of war, but of return. Not of victory, but of love. Seraphine kissed Aloysia before the gathered court, slow and deep and proud, and when she pulled back, she whispered into her mouth, My queen. And Aloysia, flushed and grinning, whispered back, Forever. The kingdom didn't just survive.
It changed.
Under their reign, Volcrest entered an age of peace the bards would sing of for generations. The roses bloomed longer. The shadows whispered less. And in the highest tower, where the wind was sharp and the stars close, Two women lay side by side each night, no longer afraid of love, or hunger, or fate. They had chosen each other, and that choice was eternal. Thank you so much for being here and for believing in this channel. If you feel in your heart, you can donate with super thanks so I can focus more and more on this project. Your support helps me keep creating these love stories and bringing them to life for you. See you in the next video.